They left you, not in a dramatic scene, not in a storm of words. They just stopped showing up, stopped checking in, stopped caring. No messages, no explanations, no goodbye, just silence. At first, you didn't understand it. You tried to convince yourself it was just a phase. Maybe they're busy, maybe they're tired, maybe they still care, just from a distance. But days turned into weeks, and weeks into months, and silence became your only reply. You kept staring at your phone, waiting for a message that never came, a call that never rang, a door that never opened, and slowly, painfully, you realized the truth. They didn't forget you. They chose to leave you. They knew you needed them, and still they walked away. They didn't check if you were okay. They didn't wonder if you had food, sleep, or strength left. They didn't care about the war going on inside your head. They just vanished. And the silence they left behind? It wasn't peaceful. It was loud. It screamed in your ears. It echoed through your chest. It whispered the same question again and again. Why wasn't I enough? You started to doubt yourself, your heart, your worth. You looked in the mirror and questioned everything. Your smile, your loyalty, your kindness. Because how can people walk away from something real? How can someone forget the memories, the laughter, the late-night talks so easily? The truth? It wasn't about you. It was about them. People love the version of you that gives, that uplifts, that fixes, that listens. But the moment you need something back, they disappear. And so, there you were, left to break, alone. You cried quietly because who would understand? You couldn't explain the pain because it wasn't just heartbreak. It was betrayal, disappointment, and abandonment, all wrapped in silence. You stopped reaching out. You stopped explaining yourself. You stopped trying to make people stay who already decided to leave. You realized something powerful. The most dangerous man isn't the one who screams when he's hurt. It's the one who goes quiet. Because in that silence, he begins to change. You didn't break the way they wanted you to. You didn't collapse. You transformed slowly, quietly, day by day, scar by scar. You got up, not because someone helped you, but because something inside you refused to die. That little voice, buried beneath the pain, kept whispering, "This isn't the end. This is the beginning." You wiped your tears, not because the pain stopped, but because you got tired of wasting them on people who were never worth it. You stood up, not because you were strong, but because lying down wasn't an option anymore. You started to build, not out of joy, but out of rage, out of silence, out of the need to prove to yourself that they were wrong. You weren't weak, you weren't soft, you weren't fragile, you were becoming. The silence that once haunted you, now it became your weapon, your peace, your protection. You stopped chasing closure. You stopped asking why. You stopped giving chances to people who only gave you scars. Because something shifted inside you. The version of you that begged, he's gone. The one who waited, dead. The one who hoped they'd come back, buried. Now there's a new version. One born from pain, built in the dark, raised by silence. You no longer walk the same. You no longer trust the same. You no longer love the same. Because now, you love yourself more. They left you to break, and you did break, but not into pieces. You broke the limits. You broke the fear. You broke the old you. Now when people look in your eyes, they don't see the same man. They see fire. They see focus. They see silence that burns, because your silence isn't empty anymore. It's full of strength, of lessons, of power. They wanted you weak, but they accidentally created a weapon. They thought leaving would destroy you. But all it did was unlock you. There is a silence that doesn't feel peaceful. It feels like a slow drowning. You're awake but disconnected, alive but hollow. That's where it starts. Not with a loud breakdown, not with a scream, but with quiet. A dangerous, heavy, soul-suffocating quiet. You wake up, and everything feels pointless. You go through your day, but it's not you anymore. It's just a version of you going through the motions. Eating without hunger, breathing without living, existing without purpose. That's the kind of silence they left you in. It wasn't just physical abandonment, it was emotional execution. They didn't stab you. They just slowly walked away, like you were never even real. And that's the part that hurts the most, being forgotten while you're still here. Being invisible in front of the people you once gave your entire soul to. They didn't just leave you, they erased you. And for a while, you couldn't even cry. You didn't have the strength, not because you were strong, but because you were numb. You stared at the walls for hours, scrolling through old messages, replaying memories, questioning if anything was ever real. Was it love? Was it loyalty? Or was it all just convenience? You keep asking, what did I do wrong? But there's no answer, because people don't always leave when you fail. Sometimes they leave when they're done using you. That realization burns. You remember all the times you showed up for them. Late-night calls, helping them through their worst days, fighting battles that weren't even yours. And when it was your turn, no one stayed. That's the truth you faced, and it broke you. Not all at once, but piece by piece. You stopped talking, stopped smiling, stopped trusting. Because what's the point? Why open your heart when people only take from it? You became a ghost in your own life. Friends started calling you distant, family started calling you changed, but none of them knew. You were dying inside. You weren't angry. You weren't sad. You were just empty. That's what betrayal does. That's what loneliness does. It doesn't explode. It dissolves you slowly. And the worst part? You start turning on yourself. You begin to believe that maybe you're not worth loving. That maybe silence is what you deserve. That maybe everyone was right to walk away. You start shrinking, not physically but spiritually. You stop dreaming. You stop hoping. You stop believing in miracles. You become cold, and you hate it. But you can't change it. Because every time you try to feel again, your mind reminds you of how it ended last time. So you protect yourself. Not with walls, but with ice. You become hard, detached, unreachable. People think you're strong. But strength doesn't always come from power. Sometimes it comes from pain. And you were in pain. Deep, soul-cutting, silent pain. But here's the thing about pain. If it doesn't destroy you, it shapes you. And that's exactly what started happening. The version of you who was soft, gone. The one who always forgave, gone. The one who gave second, third, and fourth chances, dead. Now, you're someone else. Someone quieter, but more dangerous. Because you've learned something powerful. Silence is a weapon. While everyone was laughing, living, forgetting, you were evolving. You didn't post about it. You didn't tell anyone. You just kept your head down and started rebuilding, brick by brick, alone, in pain, but with purpose. You trained your mind to stop expecting love. You trained your heart to stop begging for comfort. You trained your soul to stand, even when it felt broken, and slowly, you started walking again, not with joy, not with pride, but with fire, a different fire, not the kind that burns bright, but the kind that never dies. People started noticing the change, not because you told them, but because your silence had became louder than their noise. You weren't reacting anymore. You weren't explaining anymore. You were just moving day by day, step by step, closer to a version of you that doesn't need validation, doesn't need applause, doesn't need anyone to survive. Because when they left you to break, they didn't realize what they were really doing. They were creating a beast, a warrior, a survivor. Not the loud kind, not the flashy kind, the cold kind, the focused kind, the one who doesn't speak, just builds. You became the kind of person that doesn't knock anymore. You just walk through the fire. You stopped caring about being understood. You stopped craving support. You stopped needing anyone to believe in you. Because now, you believe in yourself. You trust your darkness. You love your silence. You honor your scars. They left you to break. And yes, you did break. But not in the way they hoped. You didn't break down. You broke through. And now you walk with a different kind of power, not loud, not visible, but felt by everyone. There's a moment right before you rise when everything goes silent. It's not peaceful, it's heavy. It's the silence of the storm before it rips everything apart. The silence of everything you've been through building up inside you, waiting to be unleashed. And in that silence, you hear it. Not a voice, but a shift inside you. A change. A transformation. They thought you were broken. They thought you would stay down. They thought their silence, their betrayal, their abandonment would be the end of you. But what they didn't know is that this moment wasn't your breaking point. It was your awakening. You were never meant to stay in the shadows. You were never meant to be the one who quietly accepts defeat. You were meant to rise from the ashes, not as someone they once knew, but as someone they never saw coming. Because the truth is, there's a power in being forgotten. There's a strength in being left behind. There's a fire that burns deeper when you've been burned before, and that's where you are now. At the point of your rebirth, you stopped waiting. You stopped hoping. You stopped seeking validation from those who never cared. You stopped begging for the love that was never coming. Instead, you started focusing on one thing, yourself. You stopped wasting time. You stopped questioning your worth. You stopped looking for answers from anyone who couldn't give you the truth. And in that silence, you found your power. You found your purpose. No one gave it to you. No one showed you the way. You figured it out on your own. And that's the beauty of this moment. You see, strength doesn't come from being invincible. It comes from being broken and choosing to rise anyway. It comes from being left in the dark and lighting your own fire. You started waking up every day with a single thought: I will not stay here. You didn't know how, you didn't know when, but you knew you had to rise. You started building, not out of anger, not out of vengeance, but out of necessity, because you realized something. You don't need anyone to rise. You never did. You were always meant to do this alone. And so, you got to work. You focused on the grind, not to prove anything to anyone, but to prove to yourself that you're not who they think you are. You're not the broken version of you they left behind. You're not the one who needs anyone. You became the version of yourself that didn't need saving. You became the version of yourself that doesn't beg. You became the version of yourself that doesn't settle for scraps. You became the version of yourself that stands on its own no matter how heavy the weight. This wasn't about revenge. This wasn't about showing them how wrong they were. This wasn't about coming back to prove something. It was about you. It was about finding the version of you that was buried under all the pain. It was about becoming who you were always meant to be. Because they left you to break, but they didn't realize they were actually creating a warrior. The silence they left behind, it wasn't the end. It was just the beginning of your rise. They thought they could destroy you with their abandonment. They thought they could break you with their betrayal. They thought you'd stay down forever, but you didn't stay down. You didn't break. You broke free. You stopped living for others. You stopped caring about their opinions. You stopped letting their actions define your worth. Now you live for yourself. You live with purpose. You live with strength. You live with fire. Because you've learned the most important lesson. You are all you need. You rise with the same energy that once crushed you. You rise with the same fire that once burned you. But now you rise with control. You rise with power. You rise with a sense of peace that comes from knowing you don't need anyone's approval. You rise quietly. You rise steadily. But when you rise unstoppable. And now you see them. The ones who doubted you. The ones who walked away. The ones who said you'd never make it. They're watching. They're waiting. They see you now, but they don't recognize you. They see someone new, someone different, someone stronger, someone who doesn't need them. And they can't handle it. But that's not your problem. You don't need them anymore. Your rise isn't for them. It's for you. You no longer need their validation. You no longer need their approval. You no longer need to explain yourself to anyone. You rise with your own strength. You rise with your own power. You rise because you've learned the most important lesson. You don't need anyone to lift you. You lift yourself. And as you rise, you become a force they can't stop, a presence they can't ignore, a reminder that those who leave you broken only create a stronger version of you. And now you stand tall. You stand firm. You stand as the person you were always meant to be, the person they never thought you could become. Now you are the storm. You are the force. You are the rise, and nothing will ever break you again.